the air in the warehouse was thick with the acrid stench of diesel and fear. Metal shrieked in protest as the forklift, its engine roaring like a wounded beast, careened through stacks of pallets. Tyler's heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the symphony of chaos. He scrambled behind a towering pile of lumber, dust motes dancing in the harsh glare of the emergency lights. The metallic screech grew closer, a harbinger of destruction. He'd seen the glint of desperation in his brother's eyes earlier that day, a wildness he'd dismissed as stress. Now, that stress had morphed into pure, unadulterated madness, fueled by debts that had spiraled beyond control. The forklift, a hulking metal monster, slammed into a shelf unit with a sickening crunch, sending boxes cascading down. Shards of plastic and cardboard rained around Tyler, stinging his exposed skin. He could hear his brother's ragged breaths, a guttural sound laced with panic and something darker. This wasn't just a breakdown, this was a deliberate, violent act. The familiar scent of sawdust was now tinged with the metallic tang of spilled fluid, and the once ordered space had transformed into a war zone. Every instinct screamed at Tyler to run, to disappear, but a morbid fascination, a desperate hope that he could reach his brother, held him frozen. He risked the peak, his gaze snagging on the silhouette of the forklift driver, his own brother, hunched over the controls, a figure consumed by forces he could no longer comprehend. The sheer, terrifying reality of the situation began to dawn on Tyler. This was no accident. This was the calculated beginning of an unimaginable nightmare, a descent into a darkness he never knew existed within his own family, a darkness that threatened to consume them all. Tyler's past was etched with the indelible ink of duty and familial obligation, a lineage where loyalty was as sacred as blood. He was the eldest, the one expected to shoulder the burdens, to protect the younger ones. His childhood, while not overtly harsh, was marked by the constant hum of unspoken anxieties that permeated their household. His father, a man weathered by hard work and harder decisions, had instilled in him a profound sense of responsibility, a belief that the family's well-being rested squarely on his young shoulders. This was a lesson Tyler absorbed deeply, shaping his formative years and dictating his every choice. He saw his younger brother, Liam, as his ward, his to guide and shield from the world's sharp edges. Yet, as Liam grew, a chasm began to form between them, widened by Liam's increasingly erratic behavior and a growing detachment from the values Tyler held dear. The weight of this divergence pressed down on Tyler relentlessly. He recalled countless nights spent wrestling with fear, not for himself, but for Liam, for the unpredictable currents that seemed to pull him further and further away. He had tried every avenue to reach him, employing patience, stern guidance, and even pleading, but his efforts felt like casting stones into a bottomless well. The recent discovery, the chilling realization of Liam's involvement in something so sinister, had shattered the last vestiges of Tyler's naivete. It was a betrayal not just of trust, but of the very fabric of their shared history, the quiet promises whispered between them as children under the vast, indifferent sky. This internal turmoil was compounded by the silent pressure from the rest of their kin. The elders, steeped in tradition, expected adherence, a unified front regardless of the circumstances. To question or expose a family member, especially one of their own blood, was an unthinkable transgression, a stain that could never be washed away. Tyler found himself caught in an agonizing bind. His conscience screamed for accountability, for the protection of the innocent, yet the ingrained imperative to shield his family, to preserve their fractured unity, threatened to suffocate him. He saw the path ahead splitting into two brutal directions, each leading to a loss so profound it threatened to break him. The loyalty he had always so readily offered now felt like a chain, each link forged from a painful history, dragging him towards a precipice he never imagined confronting. The central conflict has solidified into a suffocating web of deceit spun by those who wield power from the shadows. Elias finds himself entangled, a pawn in a grander, crueler game orchestrated by individuals whose motivations are as murky as their methods are ruthless. His once trusted allies, or rather those who presented themselves as such, have revealed their true faces, each driven by a rapacious hunger for control and a chilling disregard for the human cost. Their machinations have cornered him, leaving him with a dwindling array of choices, each more perilous than the last. Chief among his tormentors is Silas Thorne, a man whose influence extends like a dark vine through every significant institution. Thorn operates not with overt threats, but with insidious whispers and calculated leverage. His motivation appears to be an insatiable desire to maintain his preeminence, to crush any spark of independent spirit that might challenge his carefully constructed empire. He uses Elias's past vulnerabilities, meticulously unearthed and amplified, as weapons, threatening to shatter the fragile peace Elias has fought so hard to build for himself and those he cares about. Thorn's cruelty is subtle, a slow poison that erodes trust and isolates his targets, leaving them defenseless against his ultimate aims. Alongside Thorn operates a shadowy collective, their faces obscured by the very secrecy they cherish. They are driven by a shared, unsettling ideology, a belief that order can only be achieved through absolute subjugation. Their methods are less nuanced, often involving swift, brutal actions designed to instill fear and obedience. They have demonstrated a willingness to inflict pain and loss without hesitation, viewing Elias's resistance not as a testament to his strength, but as a dangerous aberration that must be eradicated. The injustice of their predatory games gnaws at Elias, fueling a desperate resolve to break free from the vice that tightens with each passing moment. He feels the crushing weight of their collective power, a force far greater than his own, yet the sting of their betrayal and the blatant disregard for fairness ignites a primal instinct to fight back, even when the odds seem insurmountable. The air in the gilded cage grew thick with unspoken threats. Elias felt it in the forced smiles, the veiled barbs disguised as concern, and the ever-present, chilling gaze of those who believed themselves untouchable. Each meeting, once a semblance of family, now felt like a trial, the stakes escalating with every passing day. A seemingly innocent business proposition, presented with a paternal air, was revealed to be a calculated maneuver to seize his remaining assets. The carefully constructed facade of familial support crumbled, revealing a ravenous hunger beneath. He saw it in the glint of his uncle's eyes, a reflection of the same predatory nature that had haunted his childhood. He remembered, with a clarity that still sent shivers down his spine, the summer he turned 10. His father, his hero then, had been unusually distant. One afternoon, while exploring the old study, he'd stumbled upon a hidden compartment. Inside, a stack of letters, their ink faded but their message starkly clear. His father, in his youthful ambition, had partnered with his uncle, a deal that promised immense wealth but came with a morally dubious clause, a clause that had subtly, irrevocably, shifted the balance of power within the family for decades to come. The discovery, buried for years, now resurfaced, painting the present in the grim hues of past deceptions. The generosity he had once attributed to genuine affection now felt like a carefully orchestrated debt, a debt he was expected to pay with his very future. The constant pressure began to fray the edges of Elias's composure. Sleep offered little respite, haunted by the faces of those who had sworn loyalty, only to reveal their true colors. Doubts gnawed at him. Was he strong enough to resist this tide of manipulation? He clung to the fragments of his father's kinder memories, a flickering candle in the encroaching darkness, and the memory of his mother's unwavering belief in his resilience. These were the anchors that kept him from succumbing to despair, the faint whispers of hope in a symphony of betrayal. The labyrinth of their machinations seemed designed to break him, to crush his spirit until he surrendered. Yet, with each new betrayal, a quiet defiance took root, a steely resolve hardening within him. He would not be another pawn in their sordid games. The searing heat of betrayal washed over him, a tidal wave of raw emotion. First, the shock, a cold, paralyzing disbelief that his most trusted confidants could orchestrate such a cruel deception. Then, a volcanic eruption of fury. It wasn't a fleeting anger, but a deep, consuming rage that burned in his gut, threatening to consume everything in its path. He clenched his fists, knuckles white, his jaw tight, feeling a primal urge to shatter the very foundations of their lies. This pain, however, was a different beast. It was a hollow ache in his chest, a constant throb that stole his breath and made the world feel muted and gray. Every shared memory, every oath, every moment of vulnerability, now felt like a poisoned chalice. A fierce determination, born from the ashes of his shattered trust, began to solidify. He wouldn't let this break him. He couldn't. The intricate web of deceit they had woven was designed to trap him, to leave him adrift and powerless. But in that powerlessness, a new strength emerged. He started to question everything he'd held dear. Were his values misguided? Had he been naive to believe in the purity of their intentions? His priorities shifted violently, the pursuit of justice now eclipsing any personal comfort or desire for reconciliation. The betrayers had not only attacked his present but had irrevocably corrupted his past. He knew he had to act, and quickly. His mind, usually a calm and collected instrument, now raced with strategic possibilities. He exploited his keen observational skills, noticing subtle inconsistencies in their narratives, the fleeting glances that spoke volumes, the carefully chosen words designed to mislead. His empathy, once a weakness that had made him vulnerable to manipulation, now became a weapon. He could anticipate their moves, understanding their motivations and predicting their next steps. His greatest strength was his adaptability, his ability to pivot and improvise when plans went awry. Yet, his introspection, the very thing that fueled his righteous anger, also threatened to paralyze him with doubt. Was he becoming as calculating and ruthless as those he sought to expose? The line between justice and vengeance blurred, a dangerous territory he had to navigate with extreme caution. The clock was ticking, and every second counted. The weight of his decisions pressed down, each choice a stone added to an already heavy burden. His relentless pursuit of truth, once a beacon of hope, had become a solitary torch in a deepening darkness. The ripple effect of his actions spread outwards, touching lives he hadn't anticipated, leaving behind a trail of fractured relationships and unspoken resentments. Friends, once allies, now viewed him with suspicion, their loyalty eroded by his unwavering focus and the perceived sacrifices they were forced to make in his wake. He had gained a certain freedom, yes, but it was a cold, isolating freedom, bought at the steep price of genuine connection. The integrity he fought so hard to uphold felt increasingly fragile, a delicate balance threatened by the compromises he sometimes had to make, the necessary evils that gnawed at his conscience. He often found himself adrift, a stranger in familiar landscapes, his once clear path now obscured by the debris of his struggles. The world, which had once seemed so defined by right and wrong, now presented itself as a spectrum of gray, a confusing tapestry of conflicting motives and unintended consequences. He'd stare at his reflection, searching for a glimpse of the person he used to be, the one who hadn't shouldered such immense responsibility, but instead saw a face etched with a weariness that went beyond mere fatigue. It was the weariness of a soul grappling with its own metamorphosis. The isolation was profound, words felt inadequate to bridge the chasm between his internal turmoil and the external world's perception of him. He longed for understanding, a shared glance that acknowledged the depth of his struggle, but such moments were rare, fleeting glimpses of solace in a vast expanse of solitude. The constant introspection, while painful, was also the crucible in which his resilience was forged. He began to see the limitations of his initial righteous anger, recognizing that true strength lay not in fury, but in a measured resolve. He learned to disentangle his personal pain from the larger cause, a crucial step in preventing his mission from being consumed by his own emotional landscape. This period of intense self-examination, devoid of external validation, forced him to confront his deepest fears and insecurities, and in doing so, he unearthed a reservoir of inner fortitude he never knew he possessed. The chaotic present, while daunting, was also the fertile ground for his personal growth, pushing him to redefine his principles and adapt his strategies, evolving into a more nuanced and ultimately stronger individual, even as the path ahead remained uncertain. His motivations, once fueled by a burning injustice, had twisted into something unrecognizable, a warped reflection of his initial noble intentions. He saw himself not as a villain, but as a necessary force, a surgeon cutting away the diseased parts of society, no matter how painful the procedure. His logic, a labyrinth of self-deception, convinced him that the suffering he inflicted was a temporary evil for an ultimate good, a cleansing fire that would forge a better world from the ashes. He truly believed that his vision, however brutal, was the only path to true order, a utopian future that justified any cost. In stark contrast, the protagonist's path was illuminated by empathy, by a fierce commitment to preserving individual dignity. Where the antagonist saw a problem to be eliminated, the protagonists saw life to be saved, a spirit to be uplifted. Their differing values weren't mere philosophical disagreements, they represented fundamentally opposing views on the sanctity of life and the responsibility of power. While the antagonist embraced the philosophy of utilitarian control, believing the masses incapable of self-governance, the protagonist championed individual agency and the inherent worth of every soul. The antagonist's ambition had metastasized, no longer a healthy drive for progress but a ravenous hunger for absolute dominion. Power, once a tool to achieve his ideals, had become the ideal itself, an intoxicating force that corrupted his every thought. He saw the world as a chessboard, and its inhabitants as mere pawns to be sacrificed in his grand, self-serving game. This unchecked aspiration had led him to believe that his will was inherently superior, that his judgment was infallible, a dangerous delusion that blinded him to the suffering he orchestrated and the moral bankruptcy of his actions. The pursuit of justice, a flickering ember in the ashes of power's reign, ignited a desperate alliance. Anya, her idealism tempered by grim experience, found herself alongside Silas, a former enforcer disillusioned by the very system he once upheld, and Lena, a brilliant but ostracized journalist whose relentless pursuit of truth had made her a pariah. They were an unlikely trio, bound by a shared hatred for the pervasive corruption that power had woven into the fabric of society. Anya's unwavering belief in accountability clashed with Silas's pragmatic cynicism, while Lena's journalistic detachment often frustrated their more emotional responses. Their investigation was a labyrinth of hushed conversations in dimly lit taverns, clandestine meetings in forgotten alleyways, and painstaking deciphering of encrypted ledgers. They pieced together a mosaic of power's machinations, illicit deals that bled public funds dry, manufactured crises to consolidate his influence, and the silencing of dissent through intimidation and fabricated evidence. The legal system, a behemoth designed for fairness, proved to be a tangled web of procedural delays and loopholes, manipulated by those who held the purse strings and the power of influence. Proving power's direct culpability, not just the actions of his subordinates, became an almost insurmountable task. Evidence was meticulously scrubbed, witnesses were coerced into silence, and the narrative of power's benevolent leadership was carefully maintained in the public eye. During a tense strategy session, Silas scoffed, "Justice? It's a luxury for those who can afford it. For the rest of us, it's a fairy tale spun by the victors." Anya countered, her voice tight with conviction, "Then we have to make it real. We have to force them to listen, to see the rot beneath the gilded facade." Lena, ever the observer, added, her gaze distant, "The truth is what people are willing to believe. Our job is to present them with the undeniable facts, and let them decide which story to embrace." This exchange encapsulated the chasm of perspectives they navigated, highlighting how the perception of justice and truth was irrevocably shaped by individual experience and societal position. Anya saw a clear moral imperative, Silas a pragmatic battle, and Lena a narrative war. The air crackled with anticipation, thick with the scent of ozone and desperation. Anya stood at the precipice, the shattered remnants of her trust echoing in the cavernous chamber. Across from her, silhouetted against the infernal glow of the malfunctioning core, stood Kalen and his inner circle, their faces masks of cold resolve. This was it, the culmination of their deception, the final stand against the truth Anya had bled to expose. Anya didn't charge headlong. Years of careful observation and planning had honed her into a strategic force. She'd noticed the subtle tremor in Kalen's dominant hand, the almost imperceptible flicker of unease in the eyes of his most loyal lieutenant whenever a certain frequency was introduced. Her first move was a calculated disruption, a sonic pulse designed not for destruction, but for disorientation. It was a high-pitched whine, barely audible to the untrained ear, but enough to rattle the nerves of those sensitive to its unique resonance. Kalen's forces faltered, a ripple of confusion spreading through their ranks. Anya seized the moment. She didn't engage them directly, but instead used the momentary chaos to execute her second gambit, a series of targeted EMP bursts, precisely aimed at the control nodes of their defensive systems. The humming energy shields flickered and died, leaving them vulnerable. The true test came when Kalen, enraged by the unexpected turn of events, personally confronted her. He was a formidable opponent, his movements honed by years of brutal combat. But Anya had anticipated this. She employed a defensive strategy, using the environment to her advantage, weaving through the debris and operational machinery. Her courage wasn't in brute force, but in her unwavering commitment to her cause, her resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. Each evasion was a testament to her intelligence, each narrowly avoided blow a demonstration of her sheer will to survive and see justice done. She found her opening not in direct assault, but by exploiting Kalen's greatest weakness, his hubris. He was so focused on Anya, on proving his superiority, that he'd underestimated the integrity of the very system he controlled. With a surge of adrenaline and a final, desperate push, Anya triggered a cascading overload, a carefully orchestrated chain reaction that brought the volatile core to critical mass. The ensuing explosion was blinding, a deafening roar that shook the foundations of their world. Anya shielded herself, the heat intense, the price of victory evident in the scorched earth around her. Kalen and his lieutenants were consumed by the destructive force they had so carelessly wielded. Justice had been served, the perpetrators of immense suffering brought to their end. But the victory was stained with the blood of countless innocents lost, and the scar left upon Anya's soul would forever be a reminder of the steep cost of truth. The echoes of the cataclysm, though fading, continued to shape Anya's reality. The immediate aftermath was a period of somber reflection, marked by the quiet, painstaking work of rebuilding what had been shattered. Her own existence, once defined by the desperate fight for survival, now felt like an uncharted territory. The immense power she had unleashed, while necessary, had left its own indelible mark, a constant hum beneath her skin that reminded her of the destructive potential that resided within. Slowly, tentatively, she began to pick up the pieces of her life, not just the physical remnants of the world, but the fractured fragments of her own spirit. Her relationships, once forged in the crucible of shared peril, underwent a profound transformation. The unwavering loyalty of those who had stood by her throughout the ordeal became a bedrock of her recovery. Anya learned that true strength wasn't just in wielding power, but in the quiet resilience of unwavering support. Trust, once a fragile commodity, now bloomed with an unshakable solidity. She found solace in the shared silences with those who understood the unspoken burdens she carried, their presence a gentle balm to the wounds that still throbbed beneath the surface. It was a testament to the enduring power of human connection, a quiet revolution in itself. The path to forgiveness was not a swift one, nor was it about erasing the past. Anya understood that the horrors she had witnessed, the sacrifices made, could never be forgotten. Instead, she learned to integrate them, to weave them into the fabric of her being without letting them define her entirely. This process involved acknowledging the pain, the anger, and the grief, and then consciously choosing to move forward, not by denying what had been, but by building a new reality upon its foundations. The scars remained, a roadmap of her journey, but they no longer dictated her destination. In the quiet days that followed, Anya discovered a new purpose, one that emerged not from grand pronouncements but from the simple act of tending to what was broken. She dedicated herself to helping others heal, to fostering growth in the scorched earth, both literally and metaphorically. This was her quiet rebellion against the destruction, her unwavering commitment to life. Each seed planted, each hand offered in aid, was an act of hope, a tangible manifestation of her belief in renewal. The future, once a daunting expanse, now beckoned with the promise of possibility, illuminated by the enduring glow of a hard-won optimism. The scars etched by adversity, once perceived as mere wounds, had, in retrospect, become the very architects of her resilience. Each challenge weathered had not diminished her spirit, but rather forged it anew, tempering her with an unshakable inner strength. She learned that true growth wasn't found in the absence of hardship, but in the courage to face it, to extract lessons from the crucible, and to emerge, not unbroken, but beautifully mended. This journey had illuminated the profound truth that wisdom was not an inherent gift, but a cultivated garden, tended with introspection and the acceptance of life's inherent complexities. The world, once a place of overwhelming shadows, now shimmered with the persistent light of her own hard-won optimism. This hard-won optimism was not a naive denial of pain, but a profound understanding of the cyclical nature of life, where destruction often paved the way for nascent beauty. She discovered that the most vibrant blooms often push through the most barren soil, a powerful metaphor for the human spirit's capacity for renewal. To those who felt lost in their own personal storms, she carried a message of unwavering hope, that even in the darkest of nights, dawn is an inevitable promise. Resilience was not about avoiding the fall, but about the grace with which one rose, stronger and more determined than before. The ability to find joy, even in the most unexpected corners, was a testament to the enduring power of the human will to thrive. Central to this transformation was the profound realization of the immeasurable value of her chosen family. These were the souls who had walked alongside her, not just in moments of triumph, but through the valleys of despair. Their unwavering support, their unconditional love, had been the bedrock upon which her recovery and subsequent growth were built. It was in these bonds, forged not by blood but by shared experience and mutual admiration, that she found her truest sense of belonging. The intricate tapestry of their lives, woven with threads of respect, empathy, and unwavering trust, was a constant reminder that no one truly navigated life's journey alone. These relationships, cultivated with deliberate care, were the most precious harvest of her experiences, proving that love, in its purest form, was the most potent force for healing and for building a life of profound meaning.